Good morning. Welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Friday, August 14th. Let's get into the action. Take a look at the S&Ps, which are higher. We're flat to higher. We're up 0.06%. It's a quiet session. It's a relatively calm session. But the index is on track for its third consecutive weekly gain. So that, you got to look at that as positive. And later today, you're going to get a host of 13F reports. These 13F filings are kind of important because they provide, clues as to what the institutions are loading up on, what positions they have, what positions they're adding to, the new positions, and what positions that they're giving up on. You look at Iran. There's no real progress being made on the Iran front. The talks remained stalled. Oil prices ticking higher. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is indicating that the U.S. is preparing additional economic measures against Iran. On the economic calendar today, retail sales report. That's going to be the key data point for today. In corporate news, Reddit, RDDT, they're going to join the S&P 500 on Tuesday, August 18th, replacing Avalon Bay Communities. Ticker AV, AeroVironment, trading higher today. Last night, President Trump imposed new tariffs of up to 100% on certain imports of drones and components, and as a result, the AV is trading higher. SpaceX, SPCX, trading. Elon Musk indicated in a filing that he holds a 48.4 position in the stock. Listen, he wants full control, and with that amount of shares, he has full control. Elon Musk, he's the biggest owner of SpaceX. On the earnings front, shares of BAP are trading higher following its last earnings announcement. DLO, Hawk, AMAT, they're all trading lower after their results. Monday morning, you got H World Group, that's ticker HTHT, their scheduled report. But next week is a busy week for earnings because you're going to have earnings coming out from Home Depot, Baidu, Toll Brothers, TJ Maxx, Target, Analog Devices, Intuit, Workday, Walmart, Deere, Alibaba, and Ross Stores. So you can't say it's not going to be an exciting week next week. And plus, the Fed meeting minutes are next week. I'm taking a look overseas. We're looking at the DAX, which is up 215 points or 0.82%. You got positive movement in tech stocks. Energy stocks are a little higher. London is flat to lower, down 0.05%. A little weakness in mining and pharmaceutical stocks. In Paris, the CAC is edging higher, up 0.02%. Defense and aerospace stocks are showing some momentum. Looking over at Asia last night, and you look at the Nikkei. The Nikkei was higher by 0.59%. With strength in autos and techs and basically export stocks. The yen, remained relatively steady, but there's growing expectations that the Bank of Japan is going to do another rate hike, and maybe 2 this year. So you got to be cautious that a couple of rate hikes would derail that Nikkei. That's for sure. And then we're looking at Hong Kong. The Hang Seng, was lower by 1.10%. First off, the weather is terrible over there in Hong Kong. But they saw a lot of pressure, that was being caused by tech shares. But you look at China, the Shanghai was up 0.01%, and semiconductors generally moved higher. But Trump's latest trade measure against drones did kind of weigh on the markets a little bit. In terms of oil this morning, oil is showing gains. You got WTI at $81.84 and Brent at $87.44. The U.S. already has sanctions on Iran, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated that additional measures are pending. See, it remains unclear what these additional measures are. And that uncertainty is kind of like the basis for this morning's gains. Iran is pretty self-sufficient, so they don't import and export a lot. Their main export is oil, but that's really dropping. They're having a hard time getting that out. That's for sure. Moving on into earnings, we got to start off with AMAT. The report wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good, but the stock is moving lower. It's down 5.61% this morning. These guys beat by 11 cents on higher revenue. And then you look at Hawk, HAWK. That also is trading lower this morning. It's down 5.3% to last trade was 23.07. But they beat by 5 cents, and they did it on higher revenue, and they guided higher. So keep an eye on Hawk, HAWK. Next week, Monday is quiet on earnings, but, realistically, you got Home Depot, Baidu, Toll Brothers, TJ Maxx, Target, Analog Devices, Intuit, Workday, Walmart, Deere, Alibaba, and Ross Stores all reporting next week. It's going to be a heavy week on the earnings front. Retail, in terms of economic reports, retail sales are due out this morning. University of Michigan, consumer sentiment comes out at 10 a.m. And then at 1 p.m. you get the Baker Hughes rig count. Because it's Friday. Moving on to some of the stocks hitting tape this morning. Alibaba, Apple, is working with Alibaba. They're training their own AI model for the Chinese market. Makes sense. They don't have to do a big spend on AI. They're just going to use other people's models. Meta, CapEx, return on investment remains cautionary for the stock. Tesla falls out of the top 10 in China in terms of the auto market share for the first time in a long time. Dow Jones 30's JP Morgan terminated its poly-market partnership, mainly due to regulatory concerns. Goldman Sachs, talking to their investors on NVIDIA's financing deal. They'll get the financing. Guidance, Applied Materials, Q3 sees Q3 EPS coming in 350 to, whereas the street estimate is 339. That's an uptick. Hawkeye 360, HAWK, they see full year 2026 revenue coming in 215 to 220. Street estimate's 213.41. That's an uptick. What else we have? Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about our pick of the day. I'm going to go with Alibaba, ticker BABA. No real earnings to talk about, but I like the position of Alibaba here. I mean, the earnings are next week, and you have positive news with its work with Apple. Stock is kind of weak, so yeah, there could be a nice pop here today. I mean, you look at yesterday's call volume, 106,462 calls traded versus 46,023. That's more than 2 to 1. Oh, so you got to be positive on it. Major brokers, they got price targets, 190s, 200s, and the stock's trading at 122. It's a big divergence. They're still very, very positive on the shares. So, honestly, I'm throwing it out there, and I'm going to say, 122.30, which I think is possible. It's currently trading. The last trade on the stock was 122.78, so 122.35 is not crazy. Bid offers 122.71 to 84, so a little bit of weakness will help, and you get that price, it should be a winner. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the stories hitting the tape over the last 15 minutes, so see what we see. AerCap delivers 10th Boeing 787 aircraft on lease to Air Mexico. A tanker was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. Chevron showing gains as oil prices tick higher. Yum Brands is confident that the recalled lettuce is off the market. Tyson Foods, TSM, they're exiting more beef plants, and as cattle supply is in short supply. Bristol Myers got an FDA approval for a melanoma treatment. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's move on to yesterday's pick of the day, which was Hawkeye, HAWK, Hawkeye 360. Stock opened up at 24.20, fell down to 23.55, then hit a high at 24.70. So it did make the 1% off the opening price, but we were calling for an entry price of 24 or under, which also, was a good idea because that worked as well. So the 1% was there yesterday in Hawkeye 360, HAWK. And while the stock is trading a little weak this morning, it still looks good to me. All right, traders, that concludes today's NewsWare's Trade Talk podcast. You guys know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green today.